an obedient love out of duty.
I'm talking fame. My
When
host, actor, talking Facebook. 3 IMDb's Dr. Channy. Continue.
okay, so I'm gonna kind of start from where I was. So if you have a God that created everything, and let's say he created these beings that are gonna have to obey him, what kind of love is that? That is a dutiful love. Who wants a love out of, like, there's no enjoyment if someone loves you because they feel like they have to.
Yeah, I don't think that's really
So
love.
exactly. So then he creates beings with free will, and I mean I'm gonna go straight to the beginning, like Genesis 1. Okay, I mean if we're gonna do this, I'm gonna do it right. So so he creates these beings to have communion with him. His desire was to commune with them. But this is a God that is righteous, that is pure, that is holy, that that is all these things and cannot
May I
cannot
interject?
yeah.
You say, well, if you feel obligated to love, then it's not true love. So he created beings of free will. Does these beings have free will to love me? But if they don't, I'm going to doom them to torture for the rest of
That's
existence.
I doubt
not
That's the
no,
same shit.
And plus,
no, it's
you said that
it's a
he's righteous.
choice.
Is it a
It's
choice,
a
though?
choice.
Is it a choice? I mean, come on, let's be real.
It is a choice. No, listen, okay? It is a choice. So he gives them free will, and their choice is to follow, to listen. He gave them one rule. The one rule was to not eat of one fruit, and they did it. And so then their disobedience causes them to forever, like, it causes a rift in that relationship because
But if you're
they
all
chose, they, it
omniscient,
doesn't, it's not, he gave them a
nothing
choice,
to do with
and they
debate
chose
apple to begin
no.
with.
He gives them a choice insofar as that if they choose wrongly, they're doomed to torture.
Not doomed to torture, okay? So because they disobeyed, it caused that communion that was there to be severed. So literally the what 2,000 years, or I don't even know, the thousands of years until Christ's death was like him trying to get these people, like trying to take these people back and finding good in these people, and he realizes what he's created cannot be good, cannot be righteous, cannot be holy. So then he has to then so what he does is he comes and he decides, well, let me see what it's like to be like these beings that I've created, and he robes himself in flesh to then sacrifice himself and to go through pure torture. He's hated by everyone, you know, but it's all to reestablish that connection that was lost in the beginning.
Okay, would you say God is perfect?
Yes.
And you said he's righteous.
Yes.
Righteous being morally right or justifiable, which would be subjective, and you could argue that God has done morally wrong things.
That is your... No, I wouldn't say that, because I would say God is righteous, so therefore, like, that's the standard. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, he's the standard.
But
His word is the standard. He is what put everything into being, into creation, so therefore he is the standard.
And so if he's perfect, then he's seen that that the creatures that he made were
Or
corruptible.
imperfect.
Yeah, they're imperfect and corruptible. So shouldn't he have been able to see that in foresight? Shouldn't he have foreseen that?
That's a good point.
I mean, that is a good point.
And if he had to
That's
go
where,
into the flesh
that's where
to
free will comes
experience,
into it. I think that's where free will comes into it, because if he interjects, then it's no longer free will. If he chooses,
if you're saying
okay,
that,
if he foresees it, no, like think about it. That takes away the idea of free will. If he controls the outcome, then it's not free will anymore.
But he
It's
does
not
control the
being
outcome. Okay, he's
organic.
saying, is it really free
Because he
will?
made the system.
I mean, he said, okay, you have free will, but if you choose not to align your will with that standard, then you're doomed for torture for the rest of eternity. Like, and you're gonna say that's the same as like as general free will. That is completely different from being obedient, or it's completely different from like holding a standard of obedience.
It is obedience. It is obedience. Because you are choosing to be obedient. You don't have to choose to be obedient.
That's so
you can be
stupid, though.
disobedient.
You don't really like.
I mean, just because, I mean, you think it's stupid, but
You don't have a free. You really don't have. It's like if you have the free will, so to speak, to choose to have faith as a vector in your life, but if you don't, you're doomed to torture for eternity. That is hell, right? You do believe hell is a realm that exists.
yes.
Then you have a choice to do as he asks. Like that's messed up. I reject that. I think that's silly.
And can I
Okay,
interject?
so, okay, I have this question. So, would you say that America is a free country?
Define free.
In certain aspects.
No, like, okay, like,
Don't get pissed
people
because I
would
just
say
ruined your
America
argument,
is
Jane.
free. Like, you have free, you pretty much, I mean, the
Freedom
idea
is
of
limited.
the Constitution is like you have freedom to speak your view, what you want, and you have freedom to choose your views, and you kind of have freedom to decide what you want to do in your life. But if you murder someone, you're going to go to jail. So it's
It's a conditional.
yeah, I mean, it is conditional.
So, okay, let's go back to what we were talking about before we started recording. You were trying to say that Christianity wasn't a subjective view, therefore it's preferential to something like nihilism, which is subjective. Why is Christianity
Yeah,
non-subjective? Why is
Well,
was it
it's not
objective?
okay, objective in like what sense? How would nihilism be objective?
Well, well, what I'm saying is they're both subjective in the sense they both make objective claims.
Okay.
So there's no
Can you
reason to
elaborate on that?
So there's no reason to prefer either of them objectively, but people come to different conclusions. The thing about it is that Christianity supposes that those who don't come to the same subjective conclusion are doomed to torture, right? And it's like you're saying that nihilism in and of itself is selfish, but I think like what you mean is it's subjective, which is the same thing as like any ideology.
I kind of think
I said it was selfish, but then I was like, wait, no, self-centered, and I rephrased that.
well, that's the thing. I think that the idea of a god creating subjects to be obedient to him and to in a way be dominated by him is self-centered.
What's the point of
Okay.
saying it's self-centered though? Like, is that like a criticism of it or what?
It was a observation.
I personally don't see it, nihilism as being self-centered in that aspect because you're
It's
You're coming
completely
to you're coming to a conclusion about the entirety of experience.
the way that I guess what makes me think it's self-centered is just the idea that it kind of derives from the point of it would be like the mindset that got you to that understanding, I guess. It would come I don't know. At some point,
So
it's like
studying nihilism is self-centered.
I didn't say studying nihilism was self-centered. I
You said
said
it derived from the point, or I don't know.
like
Explain.
okay, to get to that point of view, you kind of have to get to like a point to where it, like I said, it kind of seems like a gigantic pity party to where it's like nothing matters, life is pointless, there's no purpose in life, and it's just like you sitting there thinking about purpose because and you just kind of decide, okay, there is none because there's just, like, what is it all for? I don't know, it just
Well,
seems
it's because
very
you can't objectively
self-centered.
find any.
Well, I think like I think it's pointless to consider it self pitying. I mean, I could say the same thing about emotional states that people have who are Christians, right? Where it's like I think a lot of people their stories of or at least the Christians that I've talked to that are around me, such as my parents, they've had this prior to their a, I guess adoption of religious beliefs is they had certain experiences where they felt like they were, there was nothing else in the world. They couldn't find any pleasure, and then they had this revelation where they were saved. They went and were baptized. They went to church, and their Lord called upon them, right? And it's like that's still like a subjective experience. Like I don't understand like
It's a Yeah, I mean, it's a personal experience, but I mean, it doesn't make it that doesn't make it okay, that's subjective, but I wouldn't say it's like I don't know, it just seems self-centered to kind of I don't know, I guess it was what y'all were saying that I took the self-centered kind of I think it was more in the context of the conversation.
I don't think it's self-centered to say that it's a possibility that everyone's existence might be meaningless.
Well, no, I mean, but that's, like I said, in the context of the conversation that was being had, it was my, it was my thought, and I was just kind of trying to, y'all were all agreeing, and then I was like, well, what about this?
what were we agreeing on? I don't remember.
I don't know, y'all were just
Wasn't
agreeing, y'all
talking.
all kind of like had the same understanding of what it was, and so, I mean, that's boring. So,
Well, we're arguing. We're first we it sounds like you don't want to even legitimatize it as a position. It sounds like you don't even want to say that it exists. It's just like a self pitying. Like the mindset of self pity is what nihilism is. Therefore, we can't legitimatize it as a concept of conversation. Is that what you're saying?
well, no, I'm not, that's not what I'm saying at all.
I don't think we were all agreeing. I think Eric was like disagreeing with us.
Yeah, but also kind of sounding like he was agreeing.
I don't
Was
know.
he?
It sounded like everybody was kind of agreeing, and I don't know. It was just I kind of had a different thought, so I figured I'd interject. I didn't. I mean, this isn't my like end all be all worldview. It was just a thought.
Okay, so back to Christianity. So humans are corruptible. That is very true.
What can
So,
corrupt? What vectors corrupt people?
well, oh, hmm. uh, well, in the light of Christianity, there would be a lot of things that would corrupt people. Greed, sexuality, um,
Immorality and
yeah,
sexuality, not just sexuality in itself.
What's immoral in
well, yeah,
sexuality?
well,
Good.
anything,
Anything outside the sanctity of marriage.
yeah.
Yeah, but you have to understand the context. Okay, when the Bible was written, people got married as soon as girls bled, they got married, right? Their fucking fathers would would
Tell them
find
off for some
other
goats.
families and like they would it was used as like political bonds. People like fucking it's not like today, right? Today like people wait till they're in a stable environment and overall the society has changed, our culture has changed. Like back in
Is
the
it
day,
better?
so to speak.
Would
Um,
you say it's more beneficial? I mean,
I mean, I think that's arguable from both sides, right?
Yeah, that's subjective
That's
once again.
whether yeah, but it's different in the sense that like okay, to me to me being in a couple like okay like the faith in the chat right now like we're a couple at the moment, okay. If we went out and just like legitimatized our bond as marriage, it wouldn't change anything. It would just be on a piece of paper then. I like the significance of marriage. It just seems subjective to me. Like I don't understand how that would be immoral, you know?
Well, that's
Well,
also the thing
the I
because marriage has diluted as a concept because
mhm,
originally it was a religious act,
yeah.
and nowadays it's not really that.
Well, the whole idea of marriage is supposed to represent, it's
The
supposed to be
unification of two
representative.
people.
Well, it's not just supposed to be that. If you like within Christianity, marriage is very representative of God and the church being body of believers. So it is every person on earth that believes in God and is, you know, serving him and God, and it's kind of supposed to be representative of the love that God has for his people and his people have for him. So
That rubs me
What
the
if I
wrong
don't
way.
go to your church? Am I now allowed to have sex before marriage?
what?
You said in the context of the church. What if I don't go to your church?
No, 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 no. In the context of the church, referring to the church not as I'm not talking about a building, that's a temple.
As the concept, right?
I'm talking about as the concept of a body of believers, individuals, like we're talking throughout the entire world, every single person who's a Christian. Okay, that is the church.
Okay, what if I don't? What if I'm not friends with you guys?
Okay, what do you? I don't understand your point. What point are you trying
If
to
I'm not a
make?
part of your bond, why am I held to your standard of moral claims?
Well, in I mean, I guess it depends on how you view the world. You wouldn't view the world from that lens. So, I mean, you're free to do as you please. Everyone's kind of free to make their own choices. That's
Yeah, but you're
kind of the
saying what I'm
concept
doing
of
is
free
immoral,
will.
but it's only immoral in your guys' group.
Okay.
So it doesn't mean anything then. Like it doesn't.
It doesn't mean anything to you because you don't share that view. And so that in a sense, okay, yeah, that could be subjective. But if you I guess it is kind of subjective because if you view the world through the lens of Christianity, then it's not objective because it's not just a preference, it is a standard. It is something that it's a standard. It's not just a preference, it's not just something that you do because you you have an inclination towards it. It is something that you do because you do it to please God. It's like it's in the context of relationship, not in the context of um, preference.
I forget what the original how we got onto this. There was some. Oh yeah, the marriage, sex before marriage being immoral.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
We were talking about something before that.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to remember. Yeah, like how did that even? I don't remember.
Um,
Lorenz, any thoughts on this?
Mm,
What are
I
we
don't
trying to what are
know.
we trying to work out here? Oh, okay. Let's do this. Why should one why do you think one should prefer Christianity over a mindset that could be labeled as nihilistic?
okay. Well, let me let me gather my thoughts.
I think she might say it's because it's altruistic and maybe for the betterment of the people.
Yeah. As a whole, it's more beneficial. Um, there's values that I mean, even if you don't believe in Christianity, that are beneficial to society within Christianity. Um,
Well, couldn't we just take those values and institutionalize those as opposed to the whole doctrine?
I mean, a lot of people do.
That's true.
I mean, so that wasn't your question though. Um, so I just think that, okay, so a nihilistic view, the reason why I was saying it's very self-centered is because it leaves you completely, it's a cop out, kind of like there's no point to anything, so
You can
why
say the
do
same
anything?
thing about religion,
So
though.
You
but
could.
but my point with that is, this is what I was getting to with that thought, is that, so if you completely, there's no point in life, there's no point to do anything, so there's no point to be a good person, there's no point to do anything that is actually beneficial to society or to yourself even, because it just doesn't matter.
Well, that's the
But if
thing.
everyone,
People
like if you,
have physical needs, and people can.
I think that I think you could argue there's like some biological inclinations, but I think it boils down to kind of
Yeah,
what Alex said, where it's like you want to, and it doesn't matter like whether or
exactly.
not like it matters in the big picture. You
Hmm.
want to. You want to have
You want
bonds with
to.
people. You want to be kind to people. It just that makes you feel most time makes you feel good, and like
what if
it's
you don't? Like, okay, so this is my thought with this. Like, if you have those inclinations to want to do good, then you will. But what if you're a sociopath? Then does nihilism give you justification to be a sociopath?
I don't
I
care what
mean,
it's
Religion
just.
certainly doesn't stop them. Religion
no?
doesn't stop sociopaths. No.
Mhm.
Just become
Okay,
Jim
so
Jones or David Koresh.
that's
Uh,
an abuse.
So
That's
it's,
a,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
that would be an abuse of, that wouldn't be following the religion as it like is mass, like what most people understand it to be, that is people who've used it for their own good, which
And we're
people
splitting
are going to,
hairs at that point because in their mind and in their justification and in their ways of being, that's what they think. They aren't
that
taking
doesn't,
the that opposites of the nihilistic position. They are not in a
okay,
nihilistic position when they're taking those actions. They're acting of what is their warped perception of Christianity. I agree, but couldn't automatically throw them into saying they're nihilistic at that point.
well, no,
Yeah, but,
that's
but what about
not
what
what I'm
about
saying. My point with that, with what I was going to say there, is this. All right, so you've got, in Christianity or any religion, you have a right and wrong, and you can say, you can argue perception, but if you actually believe it, there is a truth and there is a correct way to understand it. So then they are misusing it, and they are wrong, and they will suffer consequences for it. So that kind of takes care of that right there.
So
What
is
I'm saying with,
Christianity an all or nothing thing?
what do you mean?
You take it all or you take none of it, or is it a la carte? You take pieces
No,
of it that you
it's
wish, and
I would say it's an all or nothing kind of thing.
so should
It's
children
not
who
something you
disrespect their
can,
parents be stoned?
okay,
they should?
all right.
That's where the question comes down to me. I don't know of any Christian in today's world
Is that
who
a,
take
is
it
that
100 who take it 100% as
Literal.
written and literal and act upon the laws as if they are literal. And
okay?
that's
So, but then I get that you're saying this, but that's, again, Jewish law. And if you actually know anything about Christianity, then
No true
you know
Scotsman.
that
right,
then you know that
Okay, what if
you're not,
one Christian is taking it upon themselves to go and kill abortion doctors? Like some of them literally do that. What if they say you're not a true Christian and you're not adhering to the true values of Christianity because you're not joining them in that hit? What would you say to that?
okay, I would say that murder is a sin.
Murder is a sin. Well, then
Yeah,
what about all the many times in the Bible that the Yahweh has committed murder? It's justified because he's God. It's justified in that context. Like if you take it
okay,
all or nothing,
you,
it's too.
And she said God is the standard, and he he created everybody and he kills people.
Okay, so, but this is what you have to think. Okay, he created everything, so then he has the right to judgment. It is,
I feel like God is an egotistical concept.
Okay, I want to differentiate. I don't think the Bible should be holistic. The way I view it is that, assuming that God does speak through the Bible and uses it as sort of like a catalyst for believers, I see it that the people who he utilized to write the Bible were human and were ultimately fallible, and they misconjured a lot of their cultural realities at the time with being spiritual truth. That's how I would view it if I were a Christian.
okay.
I can see that perspective. Because if you took everything as literal from the Bible and applied it today, that could be seen as immoral.
Mm-hmm.
By
Whose
today's
standard?
standards.
Right, by today's standard. And that's something that wouldn't, I mean, within Christianity, that's something that, and okay, I'm going to kind of elaborate a little bit more on this. My viewpoint in Christianity would be a little different from perhaps many people's view today on Christianity, who are other Christians.
Are they not legitimate Christians? See, I find it interesting to me that in the Christian community there is such a divide between like what
I
people
know.
generally accept as it's like there's so many no true Scotsman fallacies flown around in the Christian community generally of like you're not a true Christian if you do this. Like, especially the gay marriage thing is completely divisive. I find
I think that's political. Years ago, people didn't refer to themselves as Christian, just Christian. They were Baptists, they were Lutheran, they were Methodist, and that's the terminology they used talking to other people. But in the 50s, when they started grouping together as a political movement, then that's the way they could get all the Christian sects and the Catholics all on the same page by saying we're Christian, and therefore they wield more power in the political realm. So those distinctions now we see as inconsistencies in the Christian movement are really inconsistencies because they are completely different sects of a religion that were separate for hundreds of years, and it's really been a recent thing to where they've came under the same umbrella.
That's a really good point. I never looked at it that way.
That was a Christopher Hitchens thing I read once upon a time that I thought was very interesting where I got that from.
Mm-hmm. Christopher Hitchens was a really nice. Rest in peace. He was a good guy. I like to listen to him. I didn't agree with everything he said, but I enjoyed a lot of his talks. And
somebody lives morally and maybe altruistically, but they don't believe in God. Is it justified that they have to endure eternal damnation?
Okay, so then that goes on the basis that you think that people are inherently good.
No, but I think that a person could choose to be good, or...
But what is the standard of good?
Exactly, that's where it all gets murky, because it's the standard of morality.
You're saying that if you... It's a question... Alright, so you're saying that in that case you would say that people are capable of good. People are capable of being good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, without a God.
No, I would disagree with that. People are inherently evil.
Oh, well, I guess that's where we fundamentally disagree.
You gotta have Yahweh to come in and slap him around a little bit, tell him what's right.
And
why
would he make a creature that is fundamental, or at the basis, why would something that's corruptible and something that is naturally evil without his input?
Okay, again, it goes back to the beginning where a choice was made that allowed sin. Okay, no. Like, if...
A choice was made
with
corruptible creatures that he could have foreseen.
Huh?
What did you say,
I'm
Alex?
sorry, I didn't...
free will and Christianity are mutually exclusive. They
I
cannot
agree with
coexist.
that. I agree with
What
that.
do you mean? Explain.
God created everything. God is all-knowing, all perfect, and omniscient. Therefore, he knew what was going to happen before it happened. Therefore, there
Yeah, the
can be no
foresight.
free will. There can be no free will.
If he created these creatures that were corruptible, and he had the foresight to know that they would have eaten the apple and caused that to happen, I just don't see how it all works together.
According to the book of Revelations, everybody's name's already in the book, or whether or not they're going to heaven, right?
I mean, obviously, you know the answer to that question.
So, if it's already there, then it's already preordained. There can be no free will in those choices. They're already decided. The path is known.
That's a very
If
strong argument.
If the path is known, therefore you can have the illusion of choice along those paths. But if the outcome is preordained, there can be no free will.
And then with that, then I don't think you can justify eternally damning somebody when they're already predetermined to have that outcome.
In Christianity's defense here, I'm going to come in to say, hell, if you look in, it's not really, until Dante's Inferno came around, what was it, 14th century, 13th century, somewhere around in there, hell wasn't really a thing. What was described was the separation from God, not a eternal damnation hellfire bullshit. That didn't come on until later, at least the interpretation of it, and in the things that I've read anyway. So I think it was more a sense of you go to heaven or you just become nothing in the original, the way things were written, but I don't.
Or
I don't
perhaps
know.
are doomed to the external world. Perhaps you can tie into some like Buddhist reincarnation shit in there.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, Shirley MacLaine and come back and sing country music again.
Oh God. Oh.
If that was the case, then I would rather that be the case, because I wouldn't want
I would.
to.
Fuck this place. Have you looked around?
Yeah. You think it's gonna be better next go around?
Yeah, I'll roll the dice again.
No, I mean just like if it was either between being subject to eternity in a heaven with a Christian God or being put back on earth or into nothingness, I would probably choose the latter.
Would you though? I mean, I guess like I guess it depends on what your unity with God would be like, right? Like if you were just dissolved into nothing. Like, okay, if unity with God includes keeping your consciousness. Okay, so this is kind of my issue with like the whole heaven concept, right? Like the only thing really that we can't philosophically determine is whether or not consciousness is immaterial, right? And although there's a lot of people agree that, or a lot of people think that it arises based on all of the biological constructs of the brain and stuff, right? But everything like consciousness can access, information about the external world, information about past experiences, all of that stuff is something within the brain. So if you remove the biological faculties, what is there left to be aware of, even if there wasn't a plane? You know, like that's one of the issues I have with the whole heaven thing.
Because they're your tools for perceiving and perception, right?
Right. So I guess if there was like if you're like put into the astral plane or some shit.
Yeah.
The astral
A new
realm.
set of tools to interpret experience.
Yeah. So heaven would have to constitute like perhaps you assimilate into some sort of divine consciousness. I don't really know how that works, but I mean that's just like.
Well, you are. I mean, the Bible does talk about being made like to have a glorified body, so that would, I mean, with what you're saying about this whole consciousness idea.
Mm-hmm.
I mean.
This is kind of on for like 35 minutes. Do we want to continue this or we want to wrap it up? Like what?
I want to ask one question ahead.
Okay.
How do you justify your decision to choose Christianity as your belief over other religions?
Why do I choose Christianity?
Yeah. Why do you think that one's justified over the other numerous religions that are present?
Well, and this is subjective, but it has been it's a personal experience. I have experienced things to where I don't question whether there is a God or what God wants for me, because I've experienced evidence of God. And so, like I said, it's completely subjective.
So if you're born into a culture such as, I don't know, if you grew up in like North Africa or Syria or something, do you think you would be a Muslim?
Um, I kind of joke and always say that if I would, God must have known what he was doing, because if I wouldn't have had the experiences that I did, I wouldn't believe. If I wouldn't have encountered him as, like, in the ways that I did, when I did, I wouldn't believe. But because of the things that I've experienced that were very real,
And that's the thing,
I
not
do believe.
everybody gets the same experience because of different environmental factors and all kinds of other things, so they can come to different conclusions, and so I don't know.
Well, is it possible that if we okay, let's legitimatize the divine is something for a sake for just the sake of explanation. Let's say the divine is something that exists. There is a God, like that. Is it possible that all of the different cultures that have developed their own spiritual religious views are all kind of tapping into that kind of divine truth without realizing it, and then that would explain why they all have sort of like some similar thoughts on things, but a lot of it's misconstrued through their
Like the
cultural
essence of
values?
a god.
Mm-hmm.
Throwing in just the Greeks and the Romans is the only one I would throw a wrench in, just because of the multiplicity of gods, of deities. And
Well, then
maybe
you'd have
I think
to,
like in Hinduism, aren't they um, polytheistic as well?
yeah, or I mean, you
That's
would
true.
have to discount Native American religions with that too. I think that, I mean, this is coming from my perspective, which is obviously Christianity, as we've established. My view on it is that there is one true God, and that the others are a counterfeit, because in Christianity you have this idea of God, and then you have this idea of Lucifer, who is the fallen angel, and he has dominion, kind of, so to speak, over Earth, kind of, like, it's, I don't know, I'm not trying to get into all that, but so the idea is that he's trying to keep as many people from having this communion and connection with God as he can. And so he's kind of sabotaging and trying to pull people away from God. So there's this tug of war between good and evil, so, like, so to speak. And so then that would fall into the category that there is a true God, there's one true God, and the others are counterfeits.
Yeah, but aren't the Judaism and Islam, aren't they all under the same Abrahamic God?
Um, Judaism, yeah, yes. Islam, to an extent. Islam is a little different. It kind of breaks off very, very early on, and has not extremely different, but it has different views for sure.
I see.
Pretty different views.
So I think I'm gonna wrap this video up. That was interesting. We got into some interesting discussion. But yeah, I'll end it here. Cheers.